distinguished ladies, respectable men. This is my important role today to open this conference and to address you a short speech for welcoming all of you. So today is one of the big days for REHVA because we present to the outside world what are our strengths, including, first of all, the technical knowledge in the HVAC and sustainable fields. Today you will be, and we all together, will be part of a leadership league for at least two reasons. And I'd like to ask you to take a look to the program of our conference. And you'll see that we have leaders involved in this conference. We have all REHVA vice presidents involved in this program. We have policy officers involved. We have leaders of new projects involved. We have leaders of companies, our supporters, involved in this program. So the first reason is this one. Then take a look around you. You'll see other leaders attending this conference. Speaking about sustainability, because this is the big discussion today everywhere in Europe, but not only in Europe. Let me share with you three key principles which can be also adopted for many other similar institutions, not only in Europe, but also worldwide. First principle is to combine global dimension with the local dimension, meaning that it is a must to address all different levels of the transition, from global to small communities, from large to also small projects. Then we have to ensure an overall inclusion. This is one of the main principles of European Union. So to enlarge participation, and not on short term but for the long term. So involve the civil society and the people of all ages, including women, including disfavored groups. And of course, don't leave anyone behind. Find best solutions based on the collective thinking for the reduction of the carbon footprint, CO2 emissions, and for the improvement of the well-being. And the third and the final principle is to try to cooperate with all other occupations to ensure transdisciplinarity based on the reconnection with the natural environment. So have a bridge between different professions, culture and technology, engineering especially, but not only, bridge between innovation and design, arts and science. I will close this short welcoming speech emphasizing one evident reality. The Europe HVAC market needs REHVA leadership, and we are really proud to lead the HVAC sector through technical knowledge, dissemination, EU projects, policy advocacy, conferences organized, education, and many good practices and examples. Let me open this conference. I am REHVA president. I am a professor of the Technical University for Civil Engineering, and I also represent the National Association which is REHVA member, obviously, the Romanian Association for Building Services Engineers. So the first speaker for the first session is Silvia Rezesi, and forgive me if I misspelled your word. Yes, you're here. So Silvia is a policy officer of the European Commission working in the domain of energy performance of buildings and decarbonization of heating at DG Energy, what I told you. She has more than 15 years of experience in the field of energy policy and research, mostly energy efficiency and energy market analysis. So Silvia, you're invited to take the floor.
Good morning. I'll just launch my presentation. It's on it. All right. There you go. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the kind introduction. Thank you for the possibility to be here today and to participate and join the discussion of REHVA's Brussels Summit. My name is Silvia Rezesi. I'm policy officer at the unit dealing with buildings and products of DG Energy. And as you know, we have a quite broad portfolio of legislative acts on energy performance of buildings, the directive, but also in the domain of eco-design. And more recently, we're working on a heat pump action plan. So today, without any further ado, today I will be talking about two topics that are central to your 2023, to REHVA's 2023 Brussels Summit, namely indoor air quality and skills. I'll start with a short overview of indoor environmental quality provisions in EU legislation. Then I will walk you through some of the provisions of relevance in the EPBD, and then I will spend the last maybe 10 minutes of my presentation on skills. And congratulations to the organizers for the excellent agenda that they have put together. I see that you will have a full day of very interesting presentations and also discussions. Back to content, indoor environmental quality in EU legislation. There are provisions in a number of legal acts, including the Energy Performance of Building Directive, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products, but also the Construction Products Regulation, the REACH regulation, the Directive on Ambient Air Quality and Cleaner Europe, as well as Green Procurement Rules. Today I'll be talking about the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. This is where that is in the domain or in the scope of knowledge of my unit. As you know very well, this directive is currently in revision. Hopes are very high that political agreement will be reached still under the Spanish presidency, so before the end of this year. So this being said, today I'll be talking about the Commission proposal. And everything that is on my slides is currently in negotiation and might change, including significantly. So probably all of you know by now that that in December 2021 the Commission adopted a proposal for the revision of the EPBD. The Council finalized its negotiating mandate a year later, almost, at the end of October 2022, and the Parliament voted in plenary its negotiating mandate in March of this year, and still under the Swedish presidency, the tri-party negotiations started in view of hopefully, as I said, finalizing and adopting the final text by the co-legislators indicators before the end of this year, but of course, as I said, this presentation is based on the Commission proposal and subject to change depending on a multitude of landing zones on various provisions. So as we say, and probably you have heard it, because I see that we have a presentation that provides guidance on trialogues, but a good rule of the thumb is that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So that's where we are starting from. I will spend just a very short moment because I presume that you have seen many presentations on the EPBD proposal in the last 2 years. The twofold objective of the EPBD revision is to set out how Europe can achieve a zero emission and fully decarbonized building stock by 2050. It is aimed at contributing to reaching the target of at least minus 60% emission reduction by 2030 in the building sector and in comparison to 2015, and achieving climate neutrality by 2050. In a sense, not in a sense, but very strongly aspiring to set and provide a long-term vision for buildings and to ensure they play their role and they contribute to achieving climate neutrality by 2050. There are, broadly speaking, 4 priority areas where the directive aspires to act, either by revising existing instruments and measures or by introducing new ones, namely renovation, decarbonization, modernization and system integration and financing. And here on this slide I have summarized all relevant provisions as they exist in the proposal of the Commission by priority area. Again, I will not spend much time on this, but I will move to the summary of provisions of relevance for today's event, namely provisions related to indoor air quality. And in the next few slides, I have summarized those provisions in a broad and more comprehensive manner, meaning that I have summarized the provisions on new buildings, on existing buildings, on information tools, highlighting in red, which moved somehow on the slides, the relevant reference to indoor air quality, which have been on the last bullet point. When it comes to main provisions on new buildings, just as I said, for completeness, I keep everything, but I'm not going to go through all points. Probably you have seen them. They are under negotiations. So let's see what will come out of the negotiations. What is important, however, is that Article 7 brings together all provisions for new buildings, and importantly, asks or requires member states to address for new buildings important dimensions that go beyond energy performance and makes a specific reference to healthy indoor climate conditions, along with adaptation to climate change, fire safety, risks related to intense seismic activity, and accessibility for persons with disabilities. Also importantly, Article 11 on building systems recognizes the importance of good indoor air quality to ensure healthy buildings, and mandates the installation of measuring and control devices for the monitoring and regulation of indoor air quality in new buildings, as well as, where feasible, in existing buildings undergoing major renovation. And I know that in different fora, the Commission has been asked to be more ambitious on this, but trust me on this, we are putting a lot of energy and negotiating power to keep those provisions as they are, as opinions typically converge on how far this should go. This slide summarizes the provisions on existing buildings. As I said, importantly, Article 11 mandates the installation of measuring and control devices for indoor air quality in existing buildings where feasible, existing buildings undergoing major renovations. Moving on to the provisions related to information tools. As you know, the Commission aspires to improve the regulatory framework on providing information to the final user, to owners, occupants, tenants, through information tools, in particular energy performance certificates. We have provided a common template with energy and greenhouse gas indicators. Sorry, but this have all slid up. I guess it has that much about interoperability between IT systems. We are getting there, but not so fast. What I wanted to say here is that member states can enrich their energy performance certificates with key indicators of building performance that go beyond or that are different than energy efficiency, including comfort features, including thermal comfort, indoor air quality, visual comfort, acoustic comfort. And I would be very curious to learn today whether there are such good examples. I know that there are projects that have advocated for such and that have proposed methodologies for such, but I'll be really interested to learn on the practical side. Then continuing with the main provisions on information tools, in Article 20, the current provisions on inspections are grouped together in view of clarifying and facilitating their implementation. Ventilation systems are included as part of the EBBD measures aimed at addressing indoor air quality, so inspections in terms of sizing and optimization of ventilation systems. Very importantly also, Article 40, and in general the new provisions to ensure access to buildings data, databases of energy performance certificates and data interoperability. And I see that later today you have my colleague Silva, who will be speaking about the Smart Readiness Indicator, which in the proposal of the Commission is required for large non-residential buildings as of 2026. I'll move now toward to the second part of my presentation, which deals with skills for building decarbonization. Because I'm really happy that that REHVA has decided to put the focus on this topic, because at the end of the day, our ability to deliver on climate neutrality, on clean energy transition, only goes as far and actually as fast as our skilled workers can take us. So, the question is our workforce sufficient and sufficiently skilled for delivering to the Fit for 55 targets? And the answer is, well, we're in the process to address this challenge before skilled workforce shortages become a true bottleneck in the decarbonization agenda. And it's very well acknowledged that this challenge is growing in scale with the acceleration of the clean energy transition, but also in complexity in the sense that jobs are becoming more integrated, more cross-sectoral, and workforce should follow in this respect. And this is a complex process. Already in 2020, it was observed that about 3 to 4 million construction workers in Europe need to develop their building decarbonization skills, and this at the time we were looking mostly at traditional crafts, so roofers, carpenters, joiners, bricklayers, but also heating installers. Since then, a lot has happened. Probably this is a gross underestimate on the very conservative side. In three years down the road, in 2023, nearly 4 in 5 small and medium-sized companies report it's generally difficult for them to find workers with the right skills. And while this is not limited to construction or to the sectors related to clean energy transition, those are typically quite dominated by small and medium enterprises. So one can safely assume that this is broadly the case. When it comes to heating, decarbonization, and this resonates within my ongoing work on the heat pump action plan that the Commission is preparing. There are about 1.5 million heating appliance installers in the EU. Most of them are small companies. Industry associations estimate that between 500 and 750 additional skilled workers are needed by 2030 if we are to deliver on the accelerated rollout of heat pumps and broadly on heating decarbonization agenda. And 50% of the existing installers would need to be reskilled towards new technologies, but also digitalization, hybridization, and cross-crafts. Similar messages coming from the solar heating and cooling sector. We've been told that they will need at least an additional 130,000 skilled workforce. And last but not least, the solar PV sector estimate that by 2030 they will have 1 million workers with up to 66,000 jobs needed in manufacturing alone. So these are significant numbers. I will speak now a bit about the broad EU perspective support, meaning sources of funding, and then zoom a little bit into the energy sectoral policy framework with respect to skills. As you know, 2023 is the European Year of Skills, and this is a good starting point to emphasize the need for skills in the twin challenge of digital and green transition, but also to put this question forcefully on the political and policy agenda. My personal take on this is that this is fantastic opportunity to discuss and move forward the skills agenda, but we need to sharpen the sectoral focus and acknowledge that attracting, retaining, and upskilling professionals for the clean energy transition in a cross-craft manner with both traditional and emerging skill sets in digitalization, hybridization, system optimization is what is missing at this stage, or what is missing at a scale that is sufficiently large and comprehensive. There are very good Commission and industry-driven initiatives. For instance, under the Pact for Skills, there are several large-scale partnerships between multiple private and public organizations in Europe, which aim at strengthening the collective actions on skills development. There is a large-scale partnership in the construction sector. It has already produced a very detailed and informative blueprint on skills and skills development. There is a recently launched one in the renewables energy sector, and there is one in energy-intensive industries, and I believe there is a large-scale partnership in preparation on digitalization in the energy sector. When it comes to talking, let's say, EU level, the question comes sooner rather than later. What kind of financial sources could we use? The good news is that under the EU budget, a substantial amount of funding is available, mostly for member states to program to foster the development of skills for the green transition in general. The main source via cohesion policy is through the European Social Fund Plus. It is the main instrument to support investment in skills, and which makes available to member states to program on multi-annual basis 5.8 billion euro for green skills and green jobs. And any opportunity I get to pass this message, these are significant. This is a significant financial resource that member states have programmed at national level. So do get involved if you have not already done so in your member state, because there are programs that are ongoing. We, on the side of DG Energy, do not necessarily always have a very clear overview of which country is programming what exactly and how the calls for expressions of interest that are launched on a regular basis work in each member state, but this is a resource that is there. That's really the main, the European Social Fund Plus is the main instrument to support investments in skills. Not the only one, there is also the European Regional Development Fund, which complements the European Social Fund with investments in skills, but also education and training, including infrastructure for those. Then there are more specific instruments, including the Just Transition Mechanism, which supports with 3 billion training and skills development of workers to adapt to the green transition. The member states concerned have already programmed those, the Just Transition Mechanism disbursement, and also under the Recovery and Resilience Facility, through the Recovery and Resilience programs, there are a number of measures for training on green skills and jobs in the national Recovery and Resilience programs, amounting to a total of about 1.5 billion euro. And again, this is something that is in place currently, so please do engage at national level, reach out and see how you can productively contribute to the success of those programs. And then there are the stable, ongoing programs such as Erasmus Plus, which enables professionals to engage in cross-border learning experiences, but also to exchange knowledge and expertise. And later today you'll be hearing from my colleague Amandine on the Build Up Skills initiative under the LifeSet program, which is really the most sectorally relevant program when it comes to skills for building decarbonization. Then at a more, let's say, policy sectoral level, we have recently, or in negotiations also, the Net Zero Industry Act, which acknowledges the skills dimensions quite, or the need for skill development quite forcefully, and puts forward the so-called Net Zero Industry Academies, which will be designing learning content centrally with input from industry, from education, and from training providers. Again, this is currently in negotiations. I am not extremely well aware how this is going, but this is something that will stay and evolve in view of meeting existing market needs. Then in the energy sectoral policy framework, the EPBD requires member states to promote education and training, as well as to ensure a sufficient workforce in numbers and in skills. The building renovation plans provide a monitoring tool for this, and there are a number of other provisions on certification schemes for relevant qualifications, on lists with information on training and certifications to be made publicly available. And yeah, this is more or less what we have in the EPBD. The Energy Efficiency Directive also requires member states to develop national training and certification schemes for the implementation of energy efficiency measures. And the Renewable Energy Directive also requires member states to provide certification or equivalent qualification schemes for installers, with member states being under the obligation to set up a framework that will achieve the necessary numbers of installers in view of the existing national targets, and are also under the obligation to provide training schemes as well as cooperating with private sector actors. This is just really a shortcut, I would say, to what is in place. Then there are provisions under the recently the F-gas regulation, which has recently reached the stage of critical agreement. I see that later today you have a presentation which I'm sure will be very interesting on the levels. So there are also other more specific provisions to this end. I would say I would close with two slides that really aim at opening the discussion on skills. What is our way forward to attract, to motivate, but also to retain and upskill workers in an evolving and cross-cutting trade context, how to improve the engagement and coordination across policies and across governance levels, because more often than not, it just so happens that the competencies on energy policies, on climate, environmental policies are a bit disconnected from the policy making with regard to employment, education, even migration policies. And this is true at EU level, but even more, I have recently encountered a few examples more blatantly at national level. So I would be happy to be convinced here that that's not the case, but and I'm sure that there are fantastic examples where there is a very good engagement and coordination between energy and employment, education, policymakers. So that's the policy breaking silos. Likewise, at least in my recent work on the heat pump action plan, I've been facing the recurring message that we need to break silos between technical crafts. We need to train workers, or when they are young, students and then workers entering the labor market in a more cross-cutting horizontal manner, to align education with training, with open reskilling in a lifelong learning perspective. And this is again something that I have reused from our public consultation we made on the heat pump action plan preparation. We had a specific workshop on skills. We had also a specific workshop in the context of the Sustainable Energy Days, Sustainable Energy Week in June. That zoomed into skills for building decarbonization. So how to pave our way forward through a supply push, but also a demand pull. Through a supply push by adapting educational curricula to reflect the moving market, and through focusing and unleashing the potential of vocational education and training. A very interesting topic. I don't have on the top of my mind whether you have a specific discussion on it today, but there is a very big potential there to calibrate vocational education and training curricula, and to, in some cases, improve the image of it, because apparently it is really context specific how vocational education and training is seen. How close is it to the market? Is it more centrally programmed? Is it closer to the industry and thus more agile and easier to respond to market needs? Then improve training offer, training accessibility and short-term training. I will go back to my statement that one of the, well actually I don't think I said this, but one of the main problems of, not problems but barriers of deploying widely or faster reskilling and upskilling is simply the fact that small companies don't have the time to engage in training. So by improving the training offer and making it easier, more accessible geographically, but also in terms of content, and making it maybe more modular, shorter term, this can at least partially address that barrier. A very important point on attracting new talent, and for this it's really communication, career orientation for young people, career orientation through professional and occupational services and advice, and also targeting teachers and trainers. On the demand side, there is a need to instigate a demand pool for clean energy solutions to foster skill supply. One way to achieve this is also through financial stimuli for training, and in this context, the availability of European funds as programmed at national level could be something of interest. Communication is also driving demand. communication through energy advice, local one-stop shops, and so on. So installers or workers in general might consider a different, cleaner energy path as long as there is demand. And demand is driven by us as consumers and as end users. Last but not least, a link to funding and procurement. This exists in some member states. There is public funding might have a link to a certain competencies and qualifications and accreditations of the workers or the workers of the contractors engaged in bidding for procurement. And this is more or less what I wanted to share with you today. I don't know what is, how do you plan to play it next? I'll be here until
for the time being. Okay, for the time being, I think we will go to the second presentation. According to our plan for this conference, the Q&A sub-session is scheduled for the end of this session. So thank you so much for the presentation. It was very interesting. So now it's an important moment for our conference, and our dear colleague Jarek Kornicki, professor at Tallinn University of Technology in Estonia and at REHVA University in Finland, is internationally renowned for the preparation of the technical definitions for nearly zero energy building. And he has a lot of activities inside the TRC, Technology and Research Committee, and he led the REHVA COVID-19 task force preparing European HVAC and ventilation guidance with more than 300,000 downloads worldwide. He's deeply involved in the work to improve energy efficiency and indoor climate of the built environment, with the major contribution in the development of dynamic simulation-based energy calculation frames for present energy performance regulations. So you are the floor, Jarek.
Well, thank you, Katalin, for this comprehensive intro. So, good morning, and I will try to tell what our REHVA views in this trilogue process, what has been very long, and indeed we are looking how when this directive can be nationally implemented, and that's our main target, to prepare technical guidance for these purposes. But we have noticed that this technical guidance is also needed to have these negotiations running smoothly and to understand what are the important points in the directive. So I think everybody agrees that this directive has a long history, and it has developed to be quite a comprehensive and also technically complex document. And indeed, REHVA has a history in development of a technical guidance for harmonized national implementation. Indoor environmental quality, indoor climate conditions, ventilation, comfort, and other words are quite well addressed in many articles in the EPBD. But it is very clear that explicit requirements are on the responsibility of the member states. So it is very important how these general principles then would be implemented. And Parliament proposal included many interesting new requirements how to measure, control and monitor IAQ that is been in the trilogue. And we are trying to provide a technical guidance how to understand what is IAQ substance, and what is the related building design and operation, and also a guidance for possible options how to set these national requirements. So our mission is to develop and disseminate knowledge, as Katalin already said at the beginning, and our field covers HVAC, so it's heating, ventilation, air conditioning, but as these building technical systems are responsible for indoor environmental quality and also energy use of the building, so we can say that our field very broadly covers IAQ, HVAC, and energy in design and operation of the buildings. So REHVA Technology and Research Committee has the aim to disseminate latest technology developments to foster high quality European engineering practice, and indeed when we speak about the building design, it is very much engineering task to implement everything what is in EPBD. So we represent by our national member associations, so our members are engineers who actually design building HVAC and also HVAC related thermal comfort, air quality and ventilation in buildings, and energy performance of buildings. So our members are basically those calculating, conducting these energy calculations for nearly zero energy building requirements and to issue energy performance certificates. So we are representing 120,000 engineers in 26 countries. And that's the reason we have indeed good practical competence and also latest technology competence to support development of related policies and especially for their national level implementation. So very often we are not so interested what policy option would be selected, but if policy option 1 would be selected, then we can say what then would be needed to do for the implementation, and what if some other policy option would be selected, how the implementation will be different. So this is our core competence. And we are using guidebooks, technical notes, position papers, courses for the exchange of the technical information and knowledge transfer. So this is example of our recent publication on IAQ in EPBD. It was inspired from this Article 11A, what now we know very likely would be deleted from the directive, but still these very important principles introduced in this article hopefully will stay. And this illustrates how complicated issue is IAQ in European level, because the mandate is for energy. This is very clear. Then it is also very clear that energy improvements cannot result in negative effects on IAQ. That is an essential requirement. So negative effects not allowed, but there is no mandate for the general improvement of IAQ. That is a challenge for us indeed. And in this document we just explained on 6 pages what it is, IAQ, what is the full substance related to these issues. And we were capable to show which items need regulatory effort and which aspects would be better to left for the technical guidance documents, such as European standards or national standards or national guidance document, because there needs to be a clear structure if we want to achieve something. And guidelines and examples are presented how these essential IAQ requirements can be implemented on national level. And indeed we are willing to update this document when we would have a final wording of EPBD available. So coming to main aspects what what are in the EPBD, and very important principle was already addressed in 2018 version of the EPBD, so Article 5, and basically there is no change. So when setting minimum energy performance requirements, so those shall take into account general indoor climate conditions in order to avoid possible negative effects such as inadequate ventilation and so on. So this has been already very clearly stated, and basically should be enough to establish national very clear requirements for ventilation and other fields of indoor environmental quality. So in the revised articles 7 and 8, what are dealing with new and existing buildings, so there are stated that the issues of optimal indoor environmental quality shall be addressed. So meanwhile, the wording has been healthy IAQ or optimal IAQ, no big difference, but it is important that when we speak about new buildings and when we speak about major renovation, this is clearly written in the EPBD. So national regulation, at least on the thermal comfort and indoor air quality ventilation, should be established to be capable to speak about optimal or healthy indoor environment. When actually, what is a small problem in the directive? We speak a lot about MEPS, so minimum energy performance standards, and we want to renovate worst performing buildings. That's indeed very much okay and good approach. But these IAQ issues are not addressed for the MEPS. So Article 8, what is for existing buildings, only states these requirements for major renovation, and Article 9, MEPS, there is nothing about IAQ. So this is a kind of a gap in the directive we have currently. And our message is that ventilation requirements are the most crucial when we speak about any renovation. It can be major renovation, deep renovation, MEPS, or light renovation in residential buildings. It's really very important topic for the renovation of residential buildings. And we all know that the renovation wave target is to double and to deep renovation, and we speak about renovation of 35 million units by 2030. So it's a massive renovation what should be already ongoing in Europe. And then it's very important to address these ventilation minimum requirements for, especially for residential buildings. But more generally, I think we can speak about a threefold challenge regarding to IAQ in EPBD. So first, when we deal with these MEPS, so it's a good question how IAQ and ventilation can be addressed when we speak about basically step-by-step renovation. We improve something, and then later on something else will be improved. And MEPS generally is not a major renovation, it's quite a light renovation, just by improving by couple of EPC classes. So this is something I think nobody has existing practice well established yet, so this is a kind of a question mark we really have. When we speak about deep renovation and major renovation, there are already many renovation programs in many member states, and when it is quite clear that major renovation is something very comprehensive, it is also important to push to install new ventilation systems, especially in residential buildings. And completely different word would be when we speak about zero emission buildings, when these are typically new buildings. When we speak about the smart operation, demand control, and we can already assume that all technical building systems are installed to these buildings, and these buildings are well equipped. And when we speak how to measure, how to monitor, how to control, how to make this operation smart in order to minimize energy use and indeed to maximize comfort and to achieve this optimal IAQ. So here we really see that the directive is operating in two completely different worlds when we speak about MEPS or we speak about ZEP. And just coming back to this renovation, what is actually the main aim of a directive now to focus and to improve energy performance of existing building stock. We have a lot of experience what could happen, how much damage can be happen if ventilation systems are not installed in the renovation. We know very well that if these multifamily apartment buildings will be additionally insulated and windows will be replaced with new ones which are completely airtight, when old natural ventilation systems just stop to operate and there is no air change. And when this can easily end up with mold problems and other indoor air quality and health problems. We know very well that build airtight and ventilate right. It's simple principle, but has not been simple to implement in national level when running these renovation programs, renovation grant schemes, and when these evidently looking mistakes have been unfortunately very common. So many studies have been reported these problems, and that's really important that EPBD will push that these IAQ requirements would be needed on national level. This is a kind of assurance to have a basis for the successful renovation of the building stock. I take one example from Estonia. There is a proof of evidence on the photo that these ventilation ductworks have been installed before they start to additionally insulate the wall and replace the windows. And indeed, in this case, it is done on the site, but industrial method is also possible with prefabricated facade elements. The same can be done, and air handling unit with heat recovery ventilation will be on the top of a roof. Basically, no difference. And this is example of a renovation grant system which requires installation of a heat recovery ventilation. If you don't install, you don't get renovation grant. And for housing association, it's very clear message. Yes, we need to follow these conditions, and then we will get the renovation support. And this is the way how it will happen in the practice. Estonia is good country in this respect, but this deep renovation rate is exactly the European average, what is about 0.2–0.3%, and when this estimated annual weighted renovation rate is about 1%. So Estonia really represents European average in this question. And in Estonia it is this long-term renovation strategy indeed has calculated how many buildings needed to be renovated, and with multifamily apartment buildings, which are quite standardized blocks of flats in Estonia. So the situation is that 3,000 buildings already are renovated, and 14,000 buildings are to be renovated by 2050. And with current renovation rates, what is about 200 buildings per year, it's 0.8%. This is indeed not enough, as it was in the renovation wave. Renovation rate needs to be roughly doubled, in this case to 1.9%. So it's more than 400 buildings to be renovated every year. And when indeed, if these renovation rates are to be doubled, then it is highly important, I think, everywhere that these ventilation requirements would be taken into account. And also this will mean other consequences, we need standard renovation concepts and processes, modular industrial solutions, because otherwise we would have workforce and supply chain challenges. What have maybe not so far recognized, but in the case of increased renovation volumes, these can be also serious issues. Coming back to zero emission buildings, what is a much more, let's say, easy, fascinating word when it is well pointed out in the EPBD that zero emission buildings, they need smart controls. Okay. Yeah, now it works once again. It was some update by Microsoft likely. This is perhaps one of the most important single new requirement set by the EPBD. Now it looks that will be limited for non-residential buildings, but this would be anyhow a good start to say that zero emission buildings are to be equipped with measuring and control devices for at least for regulation of indoor air quality. And would the monitoring be in the wording or not, this is not clear, but no big difference. Anyhow, we need measuring equipment and control devices so that we can regulate indoor air quality to achieve these optimal, let's say, performance, both in terms of IAQ and energy. And this also applies for existing buildings if economically feasible. So Article 11A, it was a very, very nice article, and still, as very likely dropped from EPBD, it will stay that these adequate IAQ standards in national level will be included in the EPBD, so the main principle will be required. And when we speak about IAQ standards, when EPBD makes a reference to levels, European Common Framework, and in this Parliament proposal, it also the list of indicators was set what should be measured in the building. So it basically was a list of parameters to be monitored. This was provided, but this list very likely will not stay. I just show a technical issue with this list because it was proposed that from A to F continuously monitor. But this is not so easy. It's more important to say which ones are to be continuously monitored, and for instance, which ones can be verified in the commissioning phase, and maybe you need only measurement once to measure airflow rates and make an airflow rate measurement protocol to be sure that this is done. But yes, it is quite evident that for the CO2 temperature and relative humidity, continuous monitoring would be an easy solution, and the same applies for PM 2.5, so for the particulate matter. And other parameters are more an issue to be measured and reported in the commissioning phase, so what is needed for quality assurance. But this is just a kind of a history what it was proposed, and now we are just waiting what will be the final wording, and would be then happy to update our guidance, because the main issue will not change. It's a main issue for the member states how to set these national IAQ requirements. In some countries they already exist, but in many countries they do not exist, or they are not complete. So this will stay on our table and needs to be revised. When EPBD has already on the definition level what's indoor environmental quality, and the latest wording refers to the temperature, humidity, ventilation, and presence of contaminants. So basically it operates with thermal comfort domain and air quality ventilation domain in the indoor environmental quality definition. So lighting and acoustics are not included in this definition. And that was also our approach to prepare a guidance. Guidance was prepared for air quality and thermal comfort. So we already at the beginning we excluded acoustics and lighting because these actually refer to another design disciplines not covered by REHVA competence. And when we speak about indoor air quality, then this is very tricky for the regulatory purposes. Because we always need to explain, to provide a long explanation why it is not possible to measure all individual pollutants in the air. Where indoor air is a kind of a cocktail of thousands of pollutants, and to start to measure every single one, there is actually no point. So that's the reason why CO2 concentration, but it's easy to continuously monitor, has been used as a proxy for the ventilation, and this is indeed important factor for good IQ. And another easy parameter to monitor is particulate matter, so especially PM2.5 sensors are low cost and enough reliable to use today, and to have information is the outer air enough clean for the ventilation, or is there enough good filters applied to remove PM2.5 from outer air. So basically to control air quality, what we will need are the ventilation requirements and filtration requirements, and also to use low polluting building materials to avoid these emissions from the furnishing and finishing materials, which is also highly important. And there is existing standard where this recommendation for filtering is provided, but actually this standard applies for non-residential buildings. And there is no such standard today dealing with filters, or let's say outdoor or let's say intake air quality to residential buildings. So this is something what also needs our guidance, and hopefully later on would be addressed in the residential ventilation standards. Then in the directive there is a very good principle for these zero emission buildings that should be measured at relevant unit level. So basically this guides to measure these IAQ parameters in continuously occupied spaces, like this room here, for instance. So we speak about classrooms, offices, meeting rooms, restaurants, kitchens, shops, gyms, rooms where we expect to have continuous occupancy, and in some small rooms indeed it's not worth to install all of these sensors. Basically the parameters to be monitored are CO2, temperature, relative humidity, and PM2.5. And it's slightly different in residential buildings, where it would be meaningful to monitor CO2 and PM2.5 in the living rooms and in bedrooms. Relative humidity would be very important to be monitored in wet rooms such as toilets and bathrooms, and there could be also options that this can be done in the ventilation unit. So to set ventilation requirements, when we need to distinguish non-residential buildings and residential buildings, and in the standard we have a formula for non-residential where ventilation rate depends on number of persons and number of floor square meters to remove pollutants both from people and from building materials. And this is a good example, it's a good equation to be used in the national regulation, but then the result will depend what is the occupant density. So basically it needs to be supported by some sort of local guideline or local standard how to deal with different rooms and what could be typical occupancy densities for a successful application, but on the regulatory level this can be very short. And as there can be natural ventilation systems, hybrid ventilation systems, then alternative approach to determine ventilation airflow rate from the CO2 concentration, this is also important. So it is possible to calculate limit values for the CO2, and if the rooms are equipped with CO2 sensors, then ventilation can be controlled based on these CO2 readings. For instance, by opening windows or other openings if it is a hybrid ventilation, or starting operation of a mechanical ventilation, and in the same fashion in the demand controlled ventilation. So this type of a guidance is also provided, and maybe this is not an exact issue to be addressed in the national regulation, but when the principle needs to be addressed, and when national standard or guideline needs to be available where these calculation principles are reported, and also these CO2 values to be used. Perhaps these are relevant in the regulation level, and when we specify some value, then it is important to say how much you can be out of that specified range. So for instance, to say that during 5% of occupancy hours, CO2 can be higher than specified limit value. So this is the typical business when setting national regulatory requirements. And as I said previously, when we speak about residential buildings, it's another approach, and where we have very clearly rooms where we need to have clean air to be supplied as a supply air from the ventilation system, or intake from the outer air. So these are living rooms, bedrooms, and we have another category of rooms which are so-called wet and polluted rooms, and from these rooms first this clean air needs to be transferred to the toilets and bathrooms and then extracted from these rooms. And to make it transparent, then for both categories of the rooms, basically some outdoor airflow rate requirements are needed, and in the existing standard it is only specified with average airflow rate value of a full residence, for instance with 0.42 liter per second per square meter in the second indoor climate category. But this is not enough for national regulation, and it is not clear how to design ventilation if that only this average airflow rate would be specified. So this is the reason why we need to go to the room category level, and this table is from the REHVA Guidebook number 25 and provides one example what could be a format of national regulation. Indeed, the numbers can be different. Every member state has some traditions and can have some different considerations, but basically just to provide a format what could be relevant for the national regulation, this is the most important. When for residential buildings it's also important to specify how this air needs to be supplied and extracted, and there is also an issue of relative humidity. So in residential ventilation must remove all excess moisture, and this is very good, but in the EPBD relative humidity was included into the IAQ definition, so this is a good reason to take this into account. And this is very important also if demand-controlled ventilation systems will be operated when CO2 control is not enough, but relative humidity at least to be placed a sensor inside the ventilation unit or extract ductwork, that would be needed. So thermal comfort also needs a specification, but maybe this is something what is typically already existing in most of the countries. We have some values for the heating season or some specified range, and this is the example what could work in heating dominating climates. There is also a cooling season specification, fixed range, and then the definition what is meant by heating season and what is meant by the cooling season, and what are the acceptable deviation from these specified ranges. So all these components are important to define to be sure that the regulation will start to work in practice. And finally, yes, this relative humidity issue, as it was listed in EPBD, this is important, and this is also dealt in levels. So it recommends one thing what is recommended is a lower limit value, so relative humidity shouldn't be lower than 20%, never. And for national approach, it leaves basically two options: either not to set these relative humidity requirements, because it's very seldom when relative humidity will drop below 20%. Mainly in cold climate this is an issue, but in most of European climates it's not an issue. Then it is very important that we need to have upper limit for the relative humidity, or let's say we need to reduce that relative humidity is not too high, but this cannot be done by any limit value, because this is rather a control set point value for the ventilation, and there are many ways how this technically can be implemented. So this is a kind of a challenge to say in the regulation clearly that buildings need to be ventilated so that excess humidity will be ventilated out and relative humidity would not be too high, but it's impossible to set. There is no easy limit value for relative humidity. It's rather an issue to be dealt in the technical guidance documents. And when we speak about this lower limit value, when in cold climates it's a question would be humidification needed or not, then it is also important to notice that humidifier itself can be a source of pollution if not properly maintained. So this is, in that respect, relative humidity topic is quite a complicated one, and indeed needs a good guidance. So to conclude, I think in the EPBD what is a good that Article 5 will keep this very important principle that when we improve energy performance, this cannot be result in any negative effects. And when Article 11 stresses that zero emission buildings will need smart controls, and there is a really new ambitious requirement for installation of measuring and control devices for the regulation of indoor air quality at relevant unit level in non-residential buildings. So this is clearly a step ahead. When these Articles 7 and 8 require to address the issue of optimal indoor environmental quality, and if that would be a final wording, I think this is also a very important step to speak about optimal indoor environmental quality in new buildings and major renovations. And the problem is that for MEPS renovation, these IAQ issues are not currently addressed, and would be very nice if that would be extended, or otherwise indeed member states on national basis need to decide how to tackle this potential problem. And IAQ is defined as temperature, humidity, ventilation rates and contaminants, with a good reference to levels, European framework, and where are basically European standards also available to implement this on national level. And yes, as said, when the final wording would be available, we would be happy to update the guidance document on how to implement in all these in national thermal comfort and indoor air quality ventilation requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jarek. I invite you and Silvia to step on the stage and to have a short discussion to also answer to the potential questions in the audience, please. So, just to, let's say, make a strategy for this 10-15 minutes discussion, I will propose to receive a question from me for each of you, and then we will listen for questions in the audience. So, first question for you, Silvia, and I think you will, let's say, accept my joke. Do you believe in EPBD? Yes, of course. This is a rhetoric question, of course. But what are the expectations for you as DGNR representative for the future? Do you think this directive will be approved this year, or it will be left for the next year?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I guess the answer is obvious. I do believe in the EPBD, otherwise probably I would have changed jobs. I guess for most of us here it is that we have to work something we believe in. On the timeline, well, I do believe and an incredible amount of efforts and technical work is being put in the last more than half a year with the ambition to finalize under the Spanish presidency, so before the end of this year. There is the hope and the belief and the good indications that this is within reach. But as political negotiations happen, there is no guarantee. There are strong indications, a lot of work being put forward. So we're optimistic. Things are moving. The Spanish presidency is very much engaged into putting a substantial work and resource, which is not a given, because you have seen in the last few years on the energy side, we have put forward a substantial number of legal acts which have to go through the processes which are not endlessly stuffed, let's say. So, but I'm very optimistic, and my colleagues are also even now in a technical drafting meeting to make this happen. As for the expectations, well, I do believe that the new, first of all, the expectations, I believe, should be put in the context of the long history of the EPBD and where it started and how it evolved over the years. I do believe we can congratulate ourselves that it has slowly but steadily improved our building stock. And this is still the path forward to make our stock ready for a progressively ready for a climate neutral future.
Thank you so much. Now for you, Jarek. So we agree that mentioning the IAQ topic in EPBD is a strong solution to push for healthy buildings. But do you think there is another solution, for example, to have REHVA guidance for our members first, and then for the whole market, to emphasize that IAQ is very important to obtain healthy buildings?
Yes, indeed. I think the way how we are preparing a guidance already follows this principle. We don't need to know what would be a final wording in EPPD. We still can recommend what's a good and healthy IAQ in buildings and what needs to be done on national regulatory basis to achieve this. But yes, I think it's also important for us that when we will update our existing guidance, if the final wording of the EPPD and exact ambition selected by EPPD is known, when we would be in line with the directive and would support the implementation of the directive. But yes, as this EPPD preparation started already 2 years ago. It was end of 21 something, so it has been very long time, and we already indeed prepared some guidance, and that's a natural progress when to update this guidance when a final wording would be available.
Thank you. It was very clear. There are questions in the audience, please. Yes.
It's a party time.
Okay, I hope I don't want to spoil the party. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Oliver Jung. I'm the Secretary General of GCP Europe, which is the European Association of Plumbers Association, HVAC installers, and mechanical contractors. And okay, maybe I will spoil the party, but in one sense, I would say I'm not sure I believe in the EPPD. And when I say this, I'll quickly give some explanation so that people can digest the shock, is I wonder whether the EPPD is the best tool in order to solve the problem of indoor air quality. And I'll give 2 examples, one from, let's say, I got from my members on the implementation part, and the other on the policy part, and then, yeah, maybe I have some hope to share. From the field, we see, and I've had a technical visit last week, that the EPPD is over-focused on energy savings and energy performance, which means that if you want to get the highest score when you build a building, at a certain moment you need to make a choice. Will I go for the most energy savings, or will I do something on the air quality side? And currently the energy savings are much more let's say favored, because there's a whole scheme in different countries that favors that one. And it also on the policy side, we see in these negotiations now that it's quite difficult actually to impose on member states something that is so much related to health, and which a little bit, sorry for the word, messes a little bit up with this nice way of looking at energy in the building. So that's why a suggestion that I would like here to share with the colleagues is, wouldn't it be time now to look at indoor air quality from outside of the EPPD box, and maybe do something similar at what was done on the eco-design side for buildings, where you saw that now more and more material efficiency requirements are entering into the eco-design, which was focused on energy savings, but this took an external path, an external policy priority, which is circular economy. And so the suggestion is here, is could we also not use another external route, which exists at the EU level, which is air quality. Ambient air quality is a policy that is being dealt with at the European level, that is being accepted by a lot of member states. And so the question is, shouldn't we be much more vocal on creating an indoor part for this air quality policy at European level, so that it's so that from externally, then the EPPD cannot ignore anymore the indoor air quality requirements, because they would have been brought back by another directive of similar weight. We have soon European elections, and so we'll be happy to further think about this new route with you. Thank you for my long comment. Listening to my long comment.
Thank you, Oliver, for your comment. I would say a few words about this. You are talking about Plan B, because Plan A is to have this IQ implemented in the EPBD. So I leave our guests to give their answers.
So if I can start, Silvia, when yes, you indeed can continue. I will give you one example how EPBD has used energy mandate to set thermal comfort requirements in buildings. So when EPBD was first established, when the concern was if there are no summer overheating temperature control requirements established when they build the buildings and have energy performance certificates, everything fine without cooling, and then later on they will install cooling devices to the buildings, what is not counted in the energy calculation of the building. And that was the reason to put in that summer thermal comfort needs to be achieved in EPBD. And for the experts, first it was quite funny that this energy directive sets requirement for the thermal comfort, but there was very clear consequence, penalty on the cooling energy. If not regulated, then this penalty in the cooling energy could be possible. And in this day, all European countries have some sort of summer thermal comfort requirements established, and they need to run the calculations to show the compliance, and in many cases cooling systems will be installed. And when these cooling systems will be installed already in the design phase, so the building will be built so that it's the design for the cooling. And this is one example how the energy mandate has been used to solve a thermal comfort problem because there are so strong consequences. But I fully agree, we haven't been so successful with EPBD when we speak about ventilation requirements. And air quality side has been, it's a bit more complicated. Still, I would say there are good attempts in the EPBD, and it's worth to utilize those ones. However, I fully agree that this outdoor air, ambient air quality regulation and directives, they are very strong, and this is another path to be utilized. But from the outdoor air, there is it's so different environment in indoor air and factors affecting. So there is no very clear direct link, maybe only for the particulate matter. But yes, I fully agree, for particulate matter there is a quite direct link, because if you open the window, then all these particles in the polluted outdoor air will also be in the indoor air. And for the particulate matter, this can work, and this can be very nice alternative route. But when we speak about the ventilation requirements, it's not anymore so straightforward, and indeed we need to utilize all these possibilities what are in the EPBD and expect that similar progress will happen as was the case for this thermal comfort example I just provided.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you, Oliver, for the question. Always good to have a provocative view, and maybe I take a step back and point to the fact that the EPBD is one tool. It's not a panacea. We cannot expect it to solve, and it has been calibrated to address a growing complexity of technical and policy issues that our buildings are facing. So please do not take it as a panacea, take it as one tool in the instrumentarium, and one tool that has a very clear energy mandate. And this is the starting point, on the basis of which we have, on the policy side, with the strong support of a few stakeholders, we have done the best we could to integrate other very important aspects and to integrate them in a balanced manner, acknowledging that these these are aspects that do influence the quality and the quality of inhabitants, and so they should be integrated. One point that, 2 points that I wanted to come back on your question, having noted the fact that the legal basis here is energy, and that the full instrumentarium of EU and, very importantly, national legislation should be used to move forward specific technical aspects, and not only legislation, but also guidance and secondary legislation, and yeah, the full instrumentarium, if you want, of what could be done at EU level, but also national, and in some cases even regional level. 2 other points on choices to be made. I think this offers a very good transition to the next session on skills, because those choices can only be meaningfully calibrated and optimized by skilled professionals. Otherwise, mistakes can be made and are being made. The other point on energy efficiency versus resource efficiency, I think this has, I started working in energy efficiency policy in 2002, when it was almost a new topic that spinned off material and resource efficiency. So I think it's not a critical observation. I think we have now, or at least I on my side, have closed the circle. We, for some years, and rightfully so, are maybe back to the future of material and resource efficiency, and that's a good thing, where integrations between different policy areas are being made, and which will help professionals not make difficult choices, but really optimize those in view of getting the best for the end user in terms of energy consumption, but also indoor environmental quality.
Thank you so much. The time passed by, so it's a little bit late. We have to close this session. Thank you to Sylvia and Jarek for their presentations. We enjoyed this first session, and I invite you to be back after this break in this room at 11 o'clock.